What makes you think she's a witch?
Well, she turned me into a newt.
A newt?
We got better.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think with fly, think.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Wait, Master. It might be dangerous. You go first.
It's the Al Travis Show. We've got with us today Senator Julia Coleman, and I'm excited to have her on for a couple of reasons. I don't like to use stalking as a term because so many, no contact orders come out of the words, but I'd like to follow along with some of my guests on their Facebook page. And since Charlie Kirk's death, I have found out that you were original Charlie Kirk follower. You knew him well, correct?
Yes, I was fresh out of college, and he gave me one of my very first jobs in conservative politics. At the time, he was still running the organization out of his parents' garage in Illinois. I ended up being their very first hire to come do what he did in Minnesota and just set up a table at college campuses and try to talk
Really?
to young people about the ideas of liberty, freedom, conservative politics. And actually, I know not everyone can see, but I know you stream. Today is actually his birthday.
Yeah.
And so you're supposed to wear red in honor of his birthday and what he stood for. And I'm wearing a shirt that says "Big Government Sucks" on it, which he actually gave me
Oh, wow.
11 years ago on the first day I met him in person when I came down to Illinois to get trained in by him.
So if you don't mind, can we chat about him a little bit? I find this fascinating.
Yeah.
He obviously wasn't shooting for guys like Al. I wasn't his target audience, but my boys were, all three college-age kids. They knew Charlie Kirk. And so, hey, Dad, did you see this video? And I don't know how many years ago it was, like, oh, that guy's interesting. He's pretty smart. And then you start watching them, and then what happens is, I don't know, your algorithm kicks in. I'm telling you, even though I wasn't his guy, I'll bet you I've seen 50 hours, 100 hours of Charlie Kirk doing the Change My Mind or, doing that thing. I became a Charlie Kirk fan, kind of a second offshoot for it because I didn't know him. How did you in college, because that would have been very new. I mean, I'm the back end of all this. You were on it from the beginning. How'd you know he would be what he was, or what said, hey, I want to apply with him? He works in his garage. What?
Well, I had just gotten out of college, and I remember, there were certain professors I would have to slant my view in a paper with if I wanted to pass the class. I was very closeted as a Republican for about half of my college experience until I decided I really would rather have friends that like me for me and what I believe than have to pretend to get in, fit in with the group. And there just was no conservative voices on college campuses. And Charlie, despite not going to college himself, didn't believe it was a lost cause and thought that if we can't even talk to each other, then we are just going to die as a nation. And so he presented this idea of let's go meet kids where they're at on college campuses. And I thought that was fascinating. And so, okay, I'll give it a shot. It only pays like $600 a month, but I'll figure it out. And
what kind of training comes with that? Because I guess what really gets me about Charlie, besides his point of view, he was exceptional at what I almost think he must have a photographic brain, in that, he'd be able to quote scripture like this, or he could do, tell you what law this was. The guy was an encyclopedia. Nothing wrong with Senator Coleman's mind. I'm not ripping that. But do you go to training and they say, here's how we answer these kind of questions? Or is he just paying? You go sit down, $600. You'll learn by getting, beat up once or twice, if you will. and how did you rank in that? And how did you think you could do that like he did? He was a master.
There was a week-long training in Illinois at the time, and it was, before you even show up to training, there's all these books that he wants you to read and memorize the core principles of. And then once you actually get there, then he talks about how you're going to interact with people. If they're giving you a hard time, here's a good response to that. And also just gives us a lot of materials to spark their interest. So, for example, the shirts, the Big Government Sucks shirts, and people would come up and go, what is that all about? And he'd have a list of talking points and try to get them into groups to have further discussions. Now, he became the absolute he wasn't always that good at that. He
Well,
absolutely honed his craft and became a master at it. And I'm one of thousands of people that he's trained to do that. So I'm kind of just waiting to see who's going to pick up that
no.
mic.
And somebody will. I mean, they're going to move on. But let me ask you this. Were you and the other thousands doing the same thing as far as videotaping it to put out there in this? Because I guess I'm sitting here, I'm stunned that we're thousands of you doing this when I thought it was just Charlie, because I've only seen videos of Charlie. Are there Julia Coleman on Minnesota State University campuses for 40 minutes just taking, question after question? Are there videos of that?
The internet wasn't the same as it was, 10, 12 years ago. It just wasn't quite the same. He would encourage you to record certain things and send it into the organization. But it really just started off as just one-on-one individual conversations with people. And I ended up founding the Turning Point USA chapter with somebody that came to my booth because I looked at him and I said, "Hey, do you like capitalism?" And his eyes lit up, and we started the Turning Point USA chapter. These are people that have become lifelong friends. And at the
That's very
time, it
cool.
wasn't thousands. At the time, I think I was one of 12. And
Okay.
so it certainly grew over time.
Oh, absolutely. So it's Charlie Kirk remembers the day today because it is his birthday today. And a good reminder to wear red. I didn't. I completely forgot, quite frankly. And it's dark when I get dressed. I just grab what I can. So anyway, I thank you for doing that. Thank you for bringing that up. And again, let me one last question, if I can.
Mhm.
Looking back now, did you ever feel threatened by doing that in any way? I mean, Charlie Kirk had his own security, and obviously that it didn't work. He had to have known there were people after him just for being him. Did you feel any of that when you went out? Or did you feel safe on a college campus to say, come talk to me about big government sucking?
Yeah, Charlie had built such a platform that it was, millions of eyes on him every single day. And I was just some kid at a college campus just
Okay.
trying to talk to people one on one. My biggest fear at the time was somebody was going to say something nasty or throw their Starbucks at me or something,
Yeah.
but never a fear of safety.
Okay. How does that change now, though, for you? And I mean this and all, we're going to obviously talk about security at the Capitol and that sort of thing. There was a naked guy running around the Senate chambers, just got himself in with, I still keep it right here, my key to the Capitol, the door, stopper. Do you worry about it now? I mean, you're the assistant minority leader. You were out there in front of everybody. Do you feel safe enough at our own Capitol?
I get nervous even in my own home, to be quite frank. I
Oh,
know you follow me on social media. Just last week,
yes.
I had somebody saying they hope me and my family experience gun violence so that I'll actually care about the issue. That had to get forwarded to the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. I've had people tweet that they want to remove all my limbs off one by one.
Yeah.
And it's a different day. And my sincere hope is that um, we can be vigilant and not get scared off. And that's why I'm taking courses and being very aware
Good
of my
for you.
surroundings and all of that. But there comes times where I have to go speak in the rotunda in front of thousands of people or outside of the
Yeah.
Capitol in front of thousands of people. And those are going to be days I'm wearing my St. Michael medal and my rosary and all of that.
Yeah.
It's definitely more nerve-wracking now than ever before.
Well, with the Hoffman and the Hortman shooting and what happened here, when someone sends something, and I did read that, by the way, thank you. It's not stalking, it's following you
Right.
on Facebook.
I follow you too.
Okay, fine. But I don't have exciting crap in my life. If you follow me, you found out I did my decks this weekend, power washed them. Ooh. All right, but are those just uneducated people who don't know the limits? You're not allowed to say that sort of thing, or are they nut jobs like the Hoffman and Hortman? Do you get a sense these are just overzealous individuals that probably don't mean you harm? You can't
I
know
would
for
say
sure, but
prior to June 14th, I would just say, okay, I'm putting this in the Sergeant at Arms file to keep an eye on, but I'm not going to do anything. This is just somebody
yeah,
on the keyboard saying things that they absolutely shouldn't be. But after that,
yeah.
it is a do not mess around policy. If you
Oh
say
yeah,
something that crosses the line, that comes across threatening in any way, it's automatically getting investigated
yeah.
and forward, not by our sergeants, but by the actual Bureau of Criminal
Good.
Apprehension.
All right. Good. I'm glad to hear that. We'll talk a lot of Charlie Kirk. It's time to go to break. When we come back, I want to ask you about this voters thing. Well, I guess I got to call it Voter Purge Protection Act. That's a state Secretary of State Simon wants to get passed. If you listen to everything they're saying about it, then there's no reason to pass it. Yet for some reason, we've got to pass it. So I want to bust it down with you, Senator Julia Coleman on the Al Travis Show. Stick around.
When the stakes are high at the Minnesota Capitol, you need more than a lobbyist. You need a partner. At Momentum Advocacy, we bring nearly 90 years of combined experience in government relations, public affairs, and strategic communications. From nonprofits to national corporations, we help organizations navigate Minnesota's political landscape with integrity, insight, and results. Whether you need legislative champions or headlines, Momentum Advocacy delivers. For more, visit momentum-advocacy.com. Momentum Advocacy, your friends at the Capitol.
Think about it. Now that school's back in session, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Are you kidding me?
You know that comment you said to the radio? The thing that we got wrong?
Clearly, Brussels sprouts are the worst vegetable.
Call us and let the world know your thoughts. 855-257-7469. That's 855-ALS SHOW.
We've got Senator Julia Coleman on the program with us. Talk a little bit about this interesting law that Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon is supporting. It's called the Voter Purge Protection Act. Basically, Simon says voters shouldn't be removed unless there is reliable evidence they died or moved to another state. I read it and I'm thinking to myself, Senator, that isn't set up already? What I don't understand, we have the perfect rolls. We have rolls that Pillsbury would love. These rolls are so good, but we don't want to share them with the federal government. Okay, fine. But if they're so good, how are we not handling the dead people already and the people who moved? I use this, Senator. My dad died 4 months ago. The state issued his death certificate. We had to pay $10 a pop or something for how many copies you want, real copies, real ones, and then you can send copies to other places anyway. So the state makes the death certificate. He's dead. Don't they then just take him off the voter rolls? They know?
Well, we've
Isn't
had
that-
cases before of people who are deceased voting.
Yeah.
I think one of the running jokes in our caucus is the day I vote Democrat will be the day I'm dead.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Good joke.
and I personally am of the mind that every now and then we should clear up the voter rolls because people do move, people do pass away, or people do become ineligible to vote. I remember in the Norm Coleman, Al Franken race, years later, they found out like hundreds of felons had voted in that race.
Yeah.
And so there's just a good reason, especially in a same day registration state, a good reason just for peace of mind of voters to say, you know, we've cleared the rolls and you can register again before you vote or register day of if you forgot. There's really no excuse when you can register day of. I can't imagine, you know, if somebody in my life were to pass away, then I was managing that. I would never even be on my mind to make sure they're off the voter roll. That's just the last thing I would be thinking of.
It's the same thing with the moving. How many people moved out of the state? Where that precious state movies, a ton of people moving out of the state. Anyone thinking about calling Steve and saying, hey, Steve, I'm moving, by the way, take me off the rolls? No one does that. No one moves out of the state and says, do this. So I presumed, and this is me probably making a fool of myself, if Al moved to Iowa, when got an Iowa driver's license or signed up to vote there, doesn't that go back to Minnesota and say, he's in Iowa now, he's one of us, take him off your rolls? Do we not do that?
Well, and another thing that got very confusing, which is why I would advocate for us having the rolls cleared very often, is in 2023, when they passed driver's license for illegal immigrants, when you get your driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote. And so we
Even as an illegal?
And that was what we couldn't get clarity on, because we would try to say, okay, can we have some sort of data that goes to the Secretary of State then to make sure that they are not automatically registered to vote? Can they get a card on there that says not eligible to vote on their license? You know, they voted down pretty much every single amendment that Republicans tried to offer. So that part of statute is still very unclear. Are these people being added to the voter rolls? I'm not sure at this point in time. And so it would be really good to just hit the reset button every now and then. People move, people die, people commit felonies and are no longer able to vote. There's 100 reasons that we should just make sure that we're starting fresh. And there's really no excuse, because you can register same day. And so that's not going to prohibit anybody from voting.
But we're 250 years into this whole experiment of the United States. Maybe I just presume things were taken care of. If the state issues a death certificate, that office should tell the rest of the state, I would even say the Minnesota Department of Revenue, guess what? Don't send another check. The federal government, his Social Security checks stopped on a dime. I would presume we could do that, and we have been doing it. The felony thing, if a judge in Minnesota says to Al, you have now been convicted of a felony, your rights to vote are taken away, the secretary, somebody there, the administrative assistant, doesn't send that to the state of Minnesota, I would have to declare that? You know what I'm saying? I just think there'd be automatic systems. We have computers today.
And it's an even more gray area, because they did pass felon voting, but it's after you have served your time. And so, you know, who's notifying the agencies of the fact that they've completely served their time or they haven't yet? And there's so much that could go wrong that I'm really struggling to understand the apprehension to just clearing this all up.
Well, then do this, and you're not going to want to do this because you're a good politician. Why would either side, anybody, want someone on a roll that was either deceased or didn't live in the state or is a felon? Why would anybody want that? So why are they fighting so hard to protect it?
And part of it, I think, is ego. I mean, Steve Simon said there's no voter fraud in Minnesota a couple years ago.
No.
And we keep having cases, even as of recently, come out that disprove that. And much as I'd imagine just lifting up, you know, that rug, what are we going to see underneath? And so part of me thinks it's reputation protection.
Okay. Well, that's the answer I was looking for. Senator, we didn't get to talk about as much as I'd like because we talked about Charlie Kirk today. You obviously knew him, and prayers to you and your family for losing a real close friend. I think America feels that. I mean, we feel that loss, but it's nowhere near as close to people that actually knew him. So prayers go out to you and yours.
Appreciate that. Thank
All
you.
right. Senator Julia Coleman on the Al Travis Show. Back after this, we'll wrap it all up.
If it's your turn to host a game, Grandpa's Barbecue